Hello, my worms. This is Wormer from Wormer Creations. I got a request to show you how to remesh an item you've made in Nomad Sculpt or another sculpting program to get it ready for 3D printing. Now, this question talked about how sometimes when you have a wireframe that has way too many little triangles, or in this case squares and shapes, that basically it's a very high memory file and it can cause issues importing it into your 3D print slicer. It can slow down everything, and on top of that, all of this is not necessary. You really don't need that insane level of wireframe detail to get this going. So I'm going to show you how to decimate. Decimate's going to be our friend here, and I suppose if you're also new to sculpting and creating some things, the wireframe determines how much detail is in your model. It determines how low poly it'll look. Now that we're really zooming in, kind of hard to see, but you can kind of see some of the texture there. If you're lower poly, you definitely see more hard edges there. But you probably know about, let's say we're at the top, the Voxel tool, the Voxel remesh. It'll basically turn multiple objects into one and create a single outer edge wireframe, and then you can choose the resolution. These kind of little squares show the size of the squares you'll make with your resolution, and for our purposes, let's just remesh all this here and see what happens. Now, I recommend just kind of playing with this and seeing what your iPad can handle. You'll kind of get a sense of it based on how much memory and RAM your iPad has. But for my purposes, I try to go over 1,000, but we'll see what happens. Yep, a lot of memory. 2%, 4%. And this is where you just don't touch anything at all. Just hang back and pray that your cute little hippo model is going to come out fine. Sippo's Moodang, by the way. You can see her in Thailand. She recently went viral for her super adorable photos and attitude. And, oh, the feet disappeared. That's weird. I'm not sure why that happened. But for our purposes, this video is about showing how to decimate. So we're going to continue with this. I'm going to troubleshoot this. And if this happens to you, let me know. And I'll make a video on how to not make your hippo feet disappear. Strange. Shouldn't have happened. Pretend they're still there. Anyway, we have now made, let's go up to our item here, a single file, just called Mirror1, and if you look, trying to tap it here, right at this little thing here, it says 2.51 M. That stands for millions, and that means millions of vertices or lines, and if you zoom in, each one of these is a vertices, and right now we have 2.5 million. We want to break it down to at least, I think, what do people aim for? At least, at most 100,000, I mean, is what you want. You want to be in the hundreds of thousands. You definitely don't want to be in the millions. So, if you want to do that and you don't want to go to remesh and change that down because you lose detail, you're actually going to go to, not Dinotropo, but Miscellaneous. And this is where we have our Decimate menu here. Now, what Decimate does is it's going to combine vertices, decimate them so you'll have less based on the percent that you choose. But basically, imagine, if you see here, like imagine there's like this square here with its 4 points. It's going to delete all these center vertices and just leave one square right here. So that's kind of what's going on. And then depending on how many you want left, it's going to determine the number. So if you want 50%, that's going to leave us with half the amount of vertices we have, which is, again, 2.5 million, which we don't want. This thing starts kind of slow, but gets faster and faster. Let's decimate a little faster than our voxel remesh. It also turns everything into triangles. So if that's an issue, you can always purchase and use the quad remesher right up there above that point I'm pointing at, but it didn't really seem like much happened, so we'll just do it again. And keep an eye on the wire mesh. It's getting a little lighter. Let's decimate again. Lighter, and that is because you can see these are getting a little larger. Let me do it again. And there they are. The triangles are connecting. We are currently at 157,000. That is much smaller than 2.5 million. So what we can do is turn off our wire. And you can see it kind of messes up with the paint there. So what you really want to do is, let's just make this all one color. And because I had two spheres there, that's what happened there. I would probably go back and delete that second sphere there that was there before he decimated, and then do this again. Because sometimes when objects are overlapping, they kind of make that effect. But again, not our purposes. We turn on the paint all to see how the model looks. And even though when you zoom in, you start to see these little vertices. Since I'm going to print about yay big, it looks perfect. It looks just fine. And it uses a fraction of the vertices we had. I like trying to shrink it as much as possible without losing too much detail. So let's just do it again. This time the wireframe is not on, but we'll take a look at our model. And I just decimated it, but visually, if we zoom in, we'll see what happens if we decimate it one more time. Decimate. You can see, you can now kind of see the edges. So I decimated again, and these triangles are getting pretty big. I hit decimate multiple times, and now you can see it's coming through. This will probably be a little more apparent in our 3D print. So I'm going to undo that, undo. And that's honestly looking pretty good, especially if, again, I'm going to print it at this size. Really can't see much there. But that's at about 40,000 vertices. Much, much smaller than our 2.5 million. That's pretty great, but I'm just going to do it one more time, and this is probably the scale I would do it at. Again, you can kind of see some vertices there, but not an issue. And what's better than Voxel is it doesn't try to find averages between the wires. If there's a raised surface and edges, it leaves those, which is why if we zoom out, the nose seems darker than the other ones, because as this is smoother, it'll join those. It's not going to... Let me zoom in on something a little more pointy here. So you see like this area here, there's like raised edges. It's not going to find an average between these two and then smooth it basically by trying to connect that. If you have sharp edges, sharp creases, it keeps those. That's why Decimate is so amazing and better than a voxel remesh, where it'll try to find those averages. I mean, here, I'll just show you. Let's say we did a voxel remesh, and let's say we do something like this. Remesh. You lose all this detail because it tried to create an equal amount of these things everywhere. So we'll undo that. And again, like let's say instead I had done the decimate. Even though I do decimate a couple times, it still looks way better than if I had voxel remeshed it. We're going to undo that. And that's what we got. So anyway, once it's at that right size, this one's still about 157,000, which is fine. This will still load up in your slicer a lot better than 2.5 million. But that's my little my little tutorial there for decimating as requested. Thanks for your question. Let me know if you have any other Nomad or 3D print questions, and I'll make a little tutorial for you. I don't know what I'm doing. It's late. Oh my god, my brain is gone. Okay. I'll see you later. Actually, yep, I'll see you later.